What's up guys, Saf here on SuperSaf TV, and in this video we're going to be looking at the key differences between the brand new Huawei P40 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra SuperSaf style. So ideally I'd be doing this comparison between the S20 Ultra and the P40 Pro Plus, but that device is still some time away. It could be a month, maybe more. So for the time being, let's look at the best from Huawei versus the best from Samsung. So initially, let's talk about the design and the build. Both of these are very premium. They're both using a metal frame with curved glass panels on the front and the back. And they both also have a rectangular camera module on the left-hand side of the back. The S20 Ultra does have a larger camera module, and it's also a larger overall device. So I would say that the P40 Pro is more comfortable overall. It's also a little bit lighter. Both devices are IP68 water and dust resistant, but I do like the look of the P40 Pro overall from the back. The camera module is smaller and you also have more color options. Quite nice looking color options actually, whereas the S20 Ultra is pretty plain. You've just got the grey and the black. Now you can customize the look of the S20 Ultra with a skin from our channel sponsor Dbrand. I'll be leaving a link to them in the description below. And currently I'm really digging their teardown skins that have been made in a partnership with my friend Zach from RYYB Everything. It lets you kind of have a preview of inside of the phone without having to open it up yourself. So I definitely recommend you check them out. Now, if we turn the devices around, then things are a little bit different. I actually prefer the overall look of the S20 Ultra because you do have a smaller punch out, which is in the center, versus the pill-shaped punched out that we've got on the P40 Pro. This kind of reminds me of the S10 Plus that we had last year. And don't get me wrong, it's there for a reason. There are some sensors inside here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But overall, aesthetically speaking, I do prefer the look of the front of the S20 Ultra versus that of the Huawei P40 Pro. Now let's talk a little bit about these displays. So both displays are OLED displays. You do get a larger display on the S20 Ultra, one of the reasons why it's a bigger device. And you also have a higher resolution on the S20 Ultra with a higher 120 Hz refresh rate. Now, that sounds all good on paper, but one of the things is with the S20 Ultra that if you do want that 120 Hz refresh rate, then you can only use that at full HD resolution. So that's 1080p. It's not going to work with Quad HD Plus resolution. The P40 Pro, on the other hand, has a resolution that kind of sits in between HD and Quad HD, and it also has a refresh rate that sits between 60 Hz and 120 Hz. So it's a 90 Hz display. And I think this is quite smart from Huawei because it gives you a good balance overall. You're not going to get crazy high resolution or crazy high refresh rate, but you have something that's going to give you good resolution, higher than full HD, and a higher refresh rate than your standard 60 Hz. So I think this is going to come down to your personal preference. In my opinion, both of these are very, very good displays. I can't really complain on using either of these. Right, now while we're on the topic, let's talk about the punch outs on the P40 Pro. So it has a front-facing camera, it has a depth sensor, but it also has some sensors for facial unlock. And the face unlock is very, very fast and it's also secure. You do have face unlock on the S20 Ultra, but it's only using the front-facing camera, so it's not something that I'd personally recommend using. And both devices also have an in-display fingerprint scanner, which is very, very fast on both of these. You've got an optical in-display fingerprint scanner on the P40 Pro. It's an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner on the S20 Ultra. Now, realistically speaking, I think both of these, although there's different technology, in my experience, they both are very, very fast and work really well. Now let's talk about the cameras. So we've got some very interesting camera setups here on both of these devices, and both have a similar camera setup in that they have a primary camera, an ultra-wide camera, a zoom camera with Periscope technology, which is going to give you roughly around 5 times optical zoom, and then there's also a time of flight sensor for depth information. Now let's break these cameras down. So for the primary cameras, the S20 Ultra does have a high resolution, But remember, pixels are not everything, and realistically speaking, on both of these devices, you are going to be shooting at roughly around 12 megapixels. That's when you're going to be able to get the most out of these cameras and these sensors. And the P40 Pro does have a slightly larger sensor size. Now, both of these have very large sensors, which will be great for low light. Now, the Huawei P40 Pro does take things a little bit differently, and it does have a red, yellow, and blue sensor rather than the traditional red, green, and blue. And Huawei say this allows it to capture more light. And this is also the case with the Periscope zoom camera, a red, yellow, and a blue sensor versus the red, green, and blue. 12 megapixels versus 48 megapixels, but once again, you're going to be pretty much shooting at 12 megapixels. You've got roughly about 5 times optical zoom on both of these, with higher zoom lengths for hybrid zoom, and as it says on here on the S20 Ultra, you do have up to 100 times digital zoom. But honestly speaking, I've said this before, it's not really practical to use at that level. It's there, but I wouldn't really recommend using it. And I do think that, you know, it's a bit of a gimmick calling it a 100 times zoom camera when the results that you get are not really usable. Now, for the ultra wide cameras, the P40 Pro does have a higher overall resolution, but the S20 Ultra does have a wider field of view, so you are going to be able to capture more into your shot with that. And then of course there is the time of flight sensor. Now we are going to have to do a SuperSaf style camera comparison between these two to really see the key differences, but currently I'm stuck at home because of quarantine restrictions. I can't really go out and do a proper SuperSaf style camera comparison like I would like to have done. Plus, I want to get the latest software on both of these before I do that test. There have been some issues on the S20 Ultra, especially in the way of things like dynamic range, which are supposedly going to be improving soon. So I'll wait till I get that update and I get the latest retail software update on the P40 Pro, and then hopefully we can do that camera comparison. If you want to see that first, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. Now, one area where I have seen the P40 Pro perform better at this point in time is when it comes to autofocus. Huawei have got what they're calling octa-phase detection autofocus, which is very, very fast. The S20 Ultra, this is something that, you know, a lot of reviewers have also talked about. The autofocus is just not as fast as other devices because it doesn't have that dual pixel technology that we've seen traditionally from Samsung. This, again, is supposed to be improved with software updates. Some of these software updates I'm still waiting for. Now, when it comes to video, the S20 Ultra can film at up to 8K, so it does get that advantage here. Now, 8K footage is very, very sharp. It does crop in. It's not really that usable if you're going to be using it handheld. You do have to have it on a tripod. Nevertheless, it is impressive to have 8K video recording on a smartphone. This is something that you don't have on the P40 Pro. You've got 4K up to 60 frames a second on both devices. And for the front-facing cameras, the S20 Ultra has a higher resolution, but as mentioned, the P40 Pro does have that additional depth sensor. Once again, we are gonna have to really see lots of results. What I'll try to do in the time being is post some, you know, side-by-side comparisons on my Twitter and Instagram until I can go out and do a proper camera comparison. So be sure to follow me on there. I'm at SuperSaf on both Instagram and Twitter, and hopefully you can see a few of the results on there for the time being. Now let's talk about the internals. So both of these are powered by the latest and greatest. The S20 Ultra, you can either have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset or the Exynos 990 series. Now, which one of these you get will vary depending on your region. Having used both myself, I can tell you that the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset is better overall in terms of performance and battery life especially, but nevertheless both are very, very fast. The Kirin 995G chipset is what we've got on the P40 Pro, which is also very, very fast. I think in terms of speed and performance, both of these are right up there. The S20 Ultra does come with more RAM. You've got 12 gigabytes as a base with an option for 16 gigabytes, whereas the P40 Pro just comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. And for storage, the P40 Pro does come with a larger base storage version of 256 gigabytes. The S20 Ultra comes with a base of 128 gigabytes, and you can get a 512 gigabyte option. Both devices do have expandable storage. However, the P40 Pro, it is a proprietary nano memory card, which is from Huawei. On the S20 Ultra, you do have a standard micro SD card, so that's going to be much cheaper and much more easily accessible to expand the storage on the S20 Ultra. Now let's talk a little bit about the audio. So neither of these of course have a 3.5mm jack. This is something that we've had to say goodbye to a long time ago. But the S20 Ultra does have stereo speakers. There's one bottom firing and there's one in the earpiece. The P40 Pro only has a single bottom firing speaker. So the S20 Ultra, when it does come to the overall audio experience, I do prefer it compared to the P40 Pro. And when it comes to the batteries, the S20 Ultra also has a larger battery. You've got a 5000 mAh battery versus the 4200 mAh battery. Now in terms of battery life, the S20 Ultra in my use has been very, very good, especially the Qualcomm Snapdragon version, which has been around 20% better in my experience compared to the Exynos version. The P40 Pro, I'm gonna have to spend some more time with it. Huawei devices in general are very, very good when it comes to battery life, very, very optimized. So we'll see how that goes. But there are some advantages that the P40 Pro does have over the S20 Ultra when it comes to charging. Firstly, you've got 40-watt charging out of the box. So that's included. You're not gonna have to buy that separately. The S20 Ultra comes with a 25-watt charger out of the box, although you can get a 45-watt charger. You do have to buy that separately, however. And the P40 Pro also has faster wireless charging, 27-watt fast wireless charging. Now, the P40 Pro Plus does have up to 40-watt wireless charging, but this is unfortunately not the case here on the P40 Pro. I say unfortunately, but 27 watts wireless charging is faster than most wide charging out there on lots of other devices. Both devices also have reverse wireless charging, so you can charge other devices using these devices. Now, I'm not sure of the exact speed. This hasn't been specified. I'll try to test this out and see which one is faster. And before we move on to pricing and availability, let's talk about software. I've left this to the end because there's a lot to talk about. So the S20 Ultra, Android 10, comes with One UI on top. Works really well, software is absolutely fine. The P40 Pro unfortunately does not come with Google Play services. So it's got Android 10 with EMUI 10.1, and there is easy ways to get most of your apps. So you can see here, I've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Outlook. They all work absolutely fine. And sometimes you do have to take a few extra steps to get those apps. But generally speaking, it's not that much of a hard experience. However, you won't be able to get Google Play services here on the P40 Pro. Not for now anyway. And that unfortunately does mean things like YouTube, Google Drive, all of the other Google apps are only going to work within a browser. So they'll still work. You can still view YouTube on here, but it's not going to have that in-app experience. And that is something that makes things complicated here on the P40 Pro. So it really depends. Are you willing to, take those extra steps and use your Google apps via a browser? Then, the P40 Pro, because of all of the other features that it's got, might be something that you're willing to go with. And it also comes in at a cheaper price. So the recommended retail price of the P40 Pro is around £900 here in the UK, which is around 25% cheaper compared to the S20 Ultra, which retails for around £1,200 here in the UK. And for that price, you are also getting double the storage on the P40 Pro. So a few of these things might lean you towards the P40 Pro, which overall is a very, very good device. Now, the S20 Ultra, I've also really enjoyed using it. Overall, it's a very, very good smartphone. There are some things that I think need tweaking with software updates, but those are the two devices, the best from Samsung versus the best from Huawei. What do you guys think? Which one would you pick between these two? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do hit that thumbs up button for me. And if you want to see lots more content here on the channel, SuperSaf style, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time. Shouldn't cough on camera. People are gonna stay away from me.